Comcast Business understands the needs of small businesses because we're one too. From a startup with 1,200 subscribers, we've grown to become a technology provider delivering business solutions to over 2 billion businesses like yours.
Major funding for this episode is provided by
From late-night cookies to coding boot camps, we meet the founders of some of South Florida's most thriving companies. Hear how they've navigated the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and their tips for success. That and more. Stay with us as we dive into your South Florida. Hello and welcome to Your South Florida. I'm Pam Gigante. Florida is home to the fourth largest economy in the U.S., with small businesses playing an essential role in the Sunshine State's economic landscape. Small businesses are defined as having less than 500 employees, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration. And they make up more than 99% of all Florida businesses, employing more than 40% of the state's workforce. But establishing and growing a successful business is not an easy road. From finding the right venture to getting startup capital, many entrepreneurs struggle to navigate the business world and get their ideas off the ground. That's why today we are speaking with some of South Florida's most successful entrepreneurs to hear their stories and get some advice for emerging business owners, perhaps even like yourself. Our first guest saw the value in bringing a unique brand of coding boot camps to South Florida. A decade later, WinCode Academy, now known as BrainStation, continues to grow as a leading technical school, helping to prepare students for success as software engineers and web developers in Miami's booming tech market. Joining me now to share her entrepreneurial journey is Joanna Mikula, co-founder and CEO of WinCode Academy and Vice President and General Manager of BrainStation Miami. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's so great to have you here.
I'm pumped.
So let's talk about, before we get into WinCode and what it is that you do, let's talk about that entrepreneurial spirit. Take us back to kind of that first venture that you had. You were still in high school. You saw a need for cheerleading uniforms. All right, so pick it up from there and walk us through how you made that all happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? I'll even take a step further back from that, which is where I got that entrepreneurial spirit. So I grew up in a household where my father was an entrepreneur, and you know, these days, being an entrepreneur, there's HBO series about it. There's, you know, it's very glamorized, and of course it is really exciting, but he was the kind of entrepreneur who was just doing whatever he could to make money so he could provide for his family. And so being in a family of an entrepreneur, I, you know, felt firsthand the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. And so for a long time, you know, entrepreneurship was not on my radar. I didn't think I had that spirit. You know, I really wanted to follow a traditional model. I was like, I'm going to go to a great college. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to have a really stable career where I know exactly what the trajectory is. I wanted that predictability.
Yeah.
You know, life had different plans for me. It turns out entrepreneurship was really deeply rooted in me and something that I get so much passion and joy from. So what ended up happening is I was a cheerleader in Finland, and when I went to college in Toronto, I saw that there was this need that I could fill in Europe for custom cheerleading uniforms. And my dad saw that I was kind of interested in it, and he was really excited. He's like, hey, we could work on this together. So he helped me set up a really small import-export business.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
So I was 18 at the time. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that was a small business.
Yeah.
I learned more about my deficiencies than what I was good at. But the more important thing about that experience was that it really sparked in me that actually I like building businesses and I like being in business. And while I didn't know it quite at that age yet, I was thinking I would go to law school, but slowly but surely I took a step back from all of that.
Yeah, you were thinking of something more stable, like you said. So you get married to your high school sweetheart.
Yes,
Juha.
yeah. So Juha is my high school sweetheart. We met in high school in Finland. I'm so blessed to have him as a partner in life and business and parenthood, all of the things. We did go to college together, so he saw me build that business. I saw him build his business. He started an e-commerce business for indoor hockey called Floorball and did really well in that. Together, we founded a tournament called the Canada Cup. It ended up being the largest indoor floorball tournament outside of Europe. And so we had a lot of early experience actually working together. But even then I was going the corporate route, so we weren't really working together full time yet.
Yeah. He too was a student of a coding boot camp in Canada, and that's really kind of what started all of this for you, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So at that stage, he had built that e-commerce sporting goods business to be very well known and respected in the community, but it remained small. So he was kind of at this inflection point in his career about what was he going to do next. And myself, I had been working for almost a decade at the National Hockey League, but I too was at the point where in order for me to go to the next level in the corporate setting, I needed to probably get an MBA. And while we were figuring all that out, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna learn to code because tech skills are really important. We saw his entire cohort of students get hired within 2 weeks. Wow. And basically we just debriefed on what an incredible accelerated model it was, that it helped professionals pivot in a really meaningful way into technology, essentially empowering them to launch technology skills no matter what their background was. And the other thing we saw is that everybody needed these skills. So that aha moment was like, wow, this is amazing. Dinner conversation, pipe dream, but we could never do this. But we were like, if we did, we should do it in a market that doesn't have it yet.
Right, so then that fast forward to coming here to South Florida, and you chose Miami to start your company. Why did you do that? How did you land on South Florida?
Yeah, so back in 2013, Miami was a wild decision to be like, we're gonna come and, you know, everybody needs to be a coder, let's do it in Miami. Yeah. Few factors. One, we really wanted to be a first mover, and that Florida represented being able to be the first code and digital design boot camp in the state.
Because there was nothing here at that point.
Nothing
so you had done
here
your
at that
homework
point.
and saw this was really an open market for that.
Yeah, so we were really excited to do that. We also saw that there was a huge demand, but not a lot of talent, so we saw an even bigger gap to fill for this market. And then for us, you know, we really wanted to be part of having a big positive impact on an emerging ecosystem at the early stages, and Miami was the perfect environment for that.
People need funding in order to start their businesses. So many people out there, people even watching this, have great ideas. How do you launch that idea? So talk about the capital, the underwriting, getting that angel investor. How do you do all of that?
Yeah, so in 2013-14, the concept of a code school, which that in and of itself was a new concept, doing it in an ecosystem which was definitely not viewed as a technology ecosystem, we knew that we couldn't raise capital. And so we had a few stars align. We, in Toronto, we had ended up buying our first condo in an up-and-coming neighborhood, which at the time meant crime-ridden. And so we had been there for quite a while, and that really paid off. That neighborhood really took off. And essentially what we were able to do is sell that condo, and the earnings we made from that appreciation enter our seed capital. So we were like, we know how much money we have. Here's approximately how long it will last us to see if this concept is going to work. So we went from concept to launch in 4 months. Wow. And we did that because essentially we had no time to think about not doing. It was only about doing. And then we gave ourselves 6 months to see if it would be profitable because we were self-funded. And later on, we were able to attract investors and ultimately an acquisition.
Wow. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Endeavor Miami. And for those who don't know what it is, talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, Endeavor's incredible. It's an organization that helps entrepreneurs who are building and scaling navigate the pitfalls, but they also really open up a network of community, of capital, all the things you need to be a successful entrepreneur. And you know, I don't know where we would be without Endeavor. The network and the advisors that we got as a result of Endeavor weighed in hugely into the success we've had. They helped us navigate the highs and the lows. And, you know, we're really, really grateful. And Miami's really lucky to have Endeavor here.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Yeah.
What's some of the best advice that you ever received while you were going through this journey, while you were building your business? So I'm really fortunate. Some of the most influential mentors I've had and continue to in my life was two of my bosses that I had at the National Hockey League, so Stephen Walcom and Terry Gregson. And the first really instilled in me to ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I think also as a female founder, that was really important. I think as a female, I am always seeking approval of others. And sometimes when you're building a business and a team, you can't always be doing that. So that's been hugely beneficial to me. And Terry really instilled that if you are failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. I think,
you know, luck plays into some of the stuff we experience in life, but if you work hard and you prepare, a lot of it is really just persistence.
Talk about Juha, your husband. You work with him.
Yes.
You're married to him. You're together all day long. Talk about how you navigate all of that.
Yeah, so I'm really, really blessed. I think what I've personally experienced and seen is that when you work with your significant other, it either works really well or it doesn't work at all. And in our case, we're really fortunate that it works so, so well. Juha's incredible. He is a wonderful partner. In business in particular, we had complementary skill sets. So that played in so well into our dynamic. He was really on the revenue financial strategy side, whereas I was on the product team and, you know, the person representing the company. And so we had great complementary skill sets. And a lot of people ask us about balance, like how do you maintain balance? We've always enjoyed talking about business at the dinner table. So I think that's one of the things we both like. That's never going to change.
Yeah.
But once we had kids, we have beautiful boys who are 6 and 3, Matthias and Lucas. They brought the balance. So when it's time, you know, when it's time for their things and playing soccer or swimming or hockey, then
you're focused on
we're
that.
not talking about business.
Yeah, and which is really important.
Yeah.
You've built an incredible business. You're in an incredible place right now. What would you tell your younger self looking back now if you had a chance?
Oh, I love this question. There's so many things I would tell myself. One would definitely be to think bigger. So I would say as a self-funded entrepreneur in the beginning, I know there's a common, misconception, I would say, that entrepreneurs are big-time risk takers. I think self-funded entrepreneurs are very risk averse because we need things to be profitable and we need to be very diligent about our decisions to make sure we can pay the bills. And so I would say that I knew we had a winning concept. We knew it was going well. We knew how much we were putting into it and we're going to put into it. And now that we're on the BrainStation side, I would say, like, it's incredible to do this and you can do it at a bigger scale. And I didn't have that perspective before, which I have now. And then the other thing I would say briefly, which is a bit cheesy, but I gotta say, like, now that I'm getting older, I you know, just celebrated my 40th birthday.
Ah, happy birthday.
Thank you. It's all about the journey. It really is.
Yeah.
When I look back at the moments when I was the most stressed and I didn't think things were gonna work out or things were pivoting all the time, I look back on them with so much excitement and happiness now because I see them from the perspective of, wow, those were the moments where I leveled up, where I learned something, where we took it to the next level. And yeah, it really is about the journey, which
amazing.
I'm still on.
Indeed.
Still learning.
And we're gonna continue to watch you and see that journey. Joanna, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great to chat with you.
Appreciate it.
And our next entrepreneur is Miami native Andrew Gonzalez, and it's possible you've tasted his sweet treats. You see, much to the dismay of his friends and family, Andrew dropped out of college his senior year to follow his dream of making and selling cookies. Andrew's vision to bring unique Cuban Miami flavors of his childhood to the late-night cookie delivery business led him to create Night Owl Cookies. Now, 10 years and nearly 10 locations later, Andrew's success has landed him on Forbes' esteemed 30 Under 30 list and as a contestant on an episode of the Food Network series Chopped Sweets. Recently, I had the chance to spend some time with Andrew at his Night Owl Cookies location across from FIU. We talked about his signature cookies, the value of social media, and how the continued support of the community and his family has helped him attain unimaginable success. Andrew, this is so fun. Thank you for having us here.
Very excited.
Love the store.
I'm
so
glad.
beautiful.
Thank you.
So at what point did your family realize that you were dropping out of college in order to pursue this? What were they thinking you were thinking?
That was a crazy time in my life. I was 2 classes away from graduating. I never told my parents I was dropping out. I would wake up in the morning, get in my car, drive to the end of the block, wait till they left to work, go back home and start like preparing stuff to bake.
Yeah.
Eventually, my mom came home early one day, found me, and I got caught. It was not a great day in that household. Yeah. My dad was not happy at all.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. My mom, I feel like most Latina moms are a little more supportive than the husbands.
Yeah.
So my dad was, he was furious, but eventually he came around. It was a one-man show for a long time. I was taking the phone calls, I was making the dough, making the cookies, driving to the houses, delivering. It was an intense couple years of my life.
But were you already a baker? Because that's a big, somebody else might say, I'm gonna hire somebody to do that. Why did you think you could bake the cookies?
Well, I was a broke college student, so I definitely couldn't hire anybody. But I just started picking up on YouTube, reading up online how to bake. But that's part of the fun about it, just going in the kitchen and having a good time.
Obviously, sprinkles are a really big part of your concept because it's in the tables.
I love sprinkles.
It's on the walls.
They're colorful, they're fun.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love to bite
They
into
make
cookie
you
that has sprinkles?
happy.
Absolutely.
So what's the most popular, the hottest seller?
So we have three that are always fighting for the top. It's between the chocolate chip, the cookies and cream, and the birthday cake. I feel like anytime a child comes in and they see the rainbow sprinkles, it's like, I need that.
That's it,
So yeah,
yeah.
this is one of the top three for sure.
The cookies are really unique. So talk about your concept for the cookies. Because when I talk to people about Night Owl, a lot of people, the first thing they say is, oh, that Ave Maria cookie, you have to try it. So talk about the concept, because it's not just come in and get a chocolate chip cookie, it's really beyond that.
Absolutely. So when I think of Night Owl and the flavors that I create, it's more about the nostalgia factor behind it. With every bite, I want to be taken back to my childhood. So I'm first generation Cuban American, so of course the Ave Maria. I grew up on guava, queso crema, galletica Maria. Growing up, I loved cereal, so Fruity Pebbles, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, just everything that's going to take me back to my childhood. I want to share that with everybody.
Okay, so what's in a birthday cake?
So birthday cake, it is chocolate chips, milk chocolate, rolled in sprinkles, and it has a nice cream cheese drizzle on top.
So every order gets warmed up, right?
Absolutely, it needs to be warm. By the time you bite in, it's a nice warm cookie. Every day, my grandma makes the dough herself. It takes lots of time and love. It goes from there into the walk-in fridge where it stays for at least 24 hours. After that, we start topping them. From there, it gets baked and sent to the stores.
You need money to do all of this. So let's talk about the entrepreneurial part and how, because people are watching this, they want to launch their own concept, they have their own ideas, but how do you get started? So walk us through that process of getting people to believe in you and get the money, the seed money, or investors to make it happen.
Looking back, that was probably one of my hardest times in my life. I didn't come from money, so I had to see if I could apply for a loan. Nobody wanted to give a 20-year-old a loan who had no assets, no equity, so I had to save up every single penny. I wanted to give up so many times. I was miserable. I was working 7 days a week. Listen, my parents told me I was crazy. My friends told me I was crazy. The banks didn't want to give me money. When everybody doesn't want to necessarily support you, you still have to figure out a way to get it done.
So what did you do? How did you get some of that funding?
So lucky enough, my parents still let me use their kitchen, so I was able to bake the cookies in my parents' kitchen, deliver it from there. My first lease, I signed with $5,000 in my bank account, thinking $5,000 was going to be able to get me through a full build out. I had a full year and a half on that lease where I was just burning cash just because I had to pay rent with no kitchen. But eventually I was able to save up enough to afford to put those ovens, to afford to put the tables and then the plumbing and everything that needed to get done.
I mean, you had not been a businessman before. You were a 20-year-old kid relatively when you started this. So what surprised you the most? What did you learn along the way?
I was a business major and nothing I learned in school applied to everything I had to do in life. I mean, it was wild. Just the amount of bureaucracy, the amount of things you had to go through to get a business open, it's not easy. And people say all the time, if it was easy, everybody would do it. It is 100% true, but the best things in life you have to strive through and you have to hustle for. We have the s'mores here. It's a chocolate base of chocolate chips and graham crackers. And of course, we need some marshmallow.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and scoop some up. Nice little torch.
Look at that.
And you got your toasted marshmallow.
Amazing.
So when you pull.
Yeah, it's nice and gooey. How many stores do you have now?
Right now we have 5 open with another 4 building out.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Did you ever imagine that when you started? You're cooking in your mom's kitchen,
And
that
looking
you would be
back,
where you are now?
I'm gonna get emotional just thinking about this, and it's already happening.
Yeah.
I never in a million years would have thought this would happen today. We were doing national shipping and it got wild, especially when COVID hit because people didn't want to leave their house. We had to take a little hiatus. We got everything together and we're finally back to national shipping. We're on day 5 and we've already delivered to 25 states.
That's incredible. That's
It's
exciting.
wild, honestly.
And how did they hear about it? Just the Instagram thing again?
Social media. I love social media.
You have people who are fans, obviously, and we've talked about how it really took off because of Instagram. So kind of walk us through when that happened. Because when you started, Instagram really wasn't a thing or that popular at the time. But that's really helped your business, has it not?
Yes, absolutely. So when I started, Instagram was very different. It was new. It was a new social media platform. I realized if we make these cookies Instagrammable, that people are gonna wanna share this. So I bought these boxes so they could showcase how pretty these cookies were. They were clear, they're a little expensive, but we saw a return in marketing. With every order that was posted, we get maybe 10 orders from that. And everything was organic and free.
At some point, you wanted to be really transparent, honest with your customers that you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So walk us through that, and how did that sort of change, or did it change anything in your business and how you approached what you do?
That was a very hard time in my life. I came out a little later in life at 25. I was scared to see what was going to happen with the community. Would they stop supporting? Would they not? And it was so beautiful to see that they just supported in droves. What I learned is, as a business owner, building connections and in relationships with your guests and your community. If you're authentic and you're yourself, people are going to want to support you. Once that happened, I realized, well, why don't we try to get more, give back to the community some more? Why don't we start raising some money for charities like the Trevor Project? Let's do whatever we can in this community to give back. I've been so fortunate enough to have the community support me. Why shouldn't I be able to do the same for them?
What is your vision for the future?
So by the end of this year, we're gonna have our 10th location open. We're also starting to franchise. We're gonna be franchising this year. So by next year, we should be pretty far along and hopefully be across the country.
So what advice would you have for budding entrepreneurs?
If you have a dream, follow it. That's the most important thing. You're gonna have people that might not believe, but as long as you have that passion, it's gonna shine through. Follow your dreams.
Our next featured local entrepreneur started off his career in IT by fixing computers for friends and family. That eventually led to the creation of the cybersecurity and IT company ARC Solvers, which stands for Attentive, Reliable, and Knowledgeable, and was named the fastest growing IT company in South Florida 3 years in a row. Joining me now to share more is Reginald Andre, founder and CEO of ARC Solvers, Inc., and he goes by Andre. Andre, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Talk a little bit about this interest in computers. This came at a young age, and then it really kicked off with something that happened in high school. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was in high school, and one of the computer technicians for the school, he was overwhelmed. And they decided to create an elective where they would have the 11th and 12th graders basically follow him. And from there, he just started teaching us computers, and that's where my love started.
Amazing. So from there, you ended up working at CompUSA, right? And then you went into business. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was about 21 years old. I was going to school to become an English teacher. And here I am at CompUSA, and one day this guy comes in and he buys all of these things, shopping cart after shopping cart after shopping cart full of
What
items.
was he getting?
Just laptops, computers, TVs, Wi-Fi, everything.
Yeah. And
at the end of the sale, he says, I have no idea how to set this up. And I said, I can do it. You know, I would always help my friends and family. And from there, he gave me his address, and I went to his home to get everything started.
So this is really just a hobby that you had no idea was going to turn into a career, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was supposed to be an English teacher right now.
Imagine that. So then lead us to ARC Solvers.
Yeah, so here we have 9 years. I'm working with this guy, and everything is going well. We have 8 employees. We're over $1 million in sales, and my business card says managing partner. My email address says vice president, but I didn't have any partnership actually. So I went to him and I said, can I have something in writing? And he asked me. He said, okay, sure. Give me a couple of months. I'll have the attorney draft up something. A couple of months later, he calls me to his office, and he says, Andre, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to let you go.
Wow.
That's what I said, and I couldn't believe it. Here I am, 9 years, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, sweating and building this company, and he lets me go. And I am in the garage. I have my 2-year-old son. I have a mortgage. I just got a house, and what am I gonna do? And I remember the quote by Rocky that says, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how you get back up. And from there, I said, you know what? I can do this myself. I had a non-compete, so I couldn't go after the old customers. And then later in that day, I created ARC Solvers.
That same day, you said, I'm going to do this.
I'm going to do it myself. I had no choice.
Isn't that something? Sometimes that's how these things happen, right? You have no choice.
Yes.
You have to pick yourself up and start over. Let's talk about funding. That's something we've talked about throughout this program. How did you get started? Because I've read you said you had $100 in the bank account to start ARC Solvers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really your seed money right there. That was it.
That's it, $100. So
Yeah.
here I am when I got laid off, essentially fired, and I was making a lot of money. But this is 2009. It was rock and roll back then.
Yeah.
You didn't keep anything. And with $100, I basically took some postcards, went to Kinko's, and just started knocking on doors, started knocking on business doors to try to just get new business. So lived in my mom's Florida room and just had to go back to the basics.
Wow. So talk about growing your business. Once you started ARC Solvers, you're starting to see that you're doing well. Then what's the next step to actually growing the business?
It was scaling.
Yeah.
Scaling has been the next part and one of the toughest parts, because you no longer had to be it. You had to now trust people to now do what what needs to be done in the business. So that was the next step. I had to get a COO, and this is all bootstrap. This is no venture seed money. This is no credit cards, no line of credit. So if I didn't have the money, I could not hire.
Yeah, you've talked about that you've seen your business grow slowly, and you've done that on purpose because you did not want to go into debt. Talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of people too, we live in an age where people want instant success, right? They see an overnight millionaire, an overnight YouTuber, whatever the case might be. But you were slow and steady. That has to take a lot of discipline.
Slow and steady wins the race. So I follow Dave Ramsey, and one of the things that he teaches is being debt-free. So I'm debt-free in my business, I'm debt-free personal. And I think that really helped, because in my previous business, when we got the money, we would buy new floors and put the big signs up and things like that, and it was unnecessary. But I knew that by just having the cash, just using whatever was in your debit card, would be the best way in order to grow the business and have it be sustainable, so that if we did have any type of crashes or anything like that, we weren't overextending ourselves.
One of the things I've heard you say too is that there was a lot of failure along the way, but you learned from those failures, and you don't want people to be afraid of failing, to not try. You're going to fail, but try and do it anyway, right? Talk about what you've learned from those failures.
I fail every day, and I tell my employees, if you're not failing, you're not learning, you're not growing. And that is so important for me that I tell them, try, make a mistake, it's okay to do that, because otherwise how else are you going to learn? So we have a policy in our company, and sometimes our techs do oops moments, but it's okay. We train on it, they learn, the entire team learns, and then we move on from it.
You sound like a good boss.
Thank you.
Allowing your employees to fail and saying, that's okay. Let's go back to, you said you wanted to be an English teacher. You went to Broward College. You have 2 associate degrees from Broward College. One's in business, one's in tech. Talk a little bit about that education, and you're on their foundation now, Broward College Foundation. Talk about how important that education was to you. And some people think, you have to go get a 4-year degree somewhere in order to start a successful business. And that's not necessarily the case, right?
The reason I wanted to become an English teacher originally was supposed to be computer science. But then I was going to go to a university, but my GPA was too low. And from there, I decided to go to Broward College. My mom is Haitian American, first generation Haitian American, and education is important for any Haitian mother out there. And from there, Broward College really, really accepted me. And you're absolutely right. You don't need a 4-year degree. You can go and get an 18-month certificate program at your local college, and you come out making $60,000 a year. But unfortunately, and especially in my community, they don't know that.
Talk a little bit quickly about work-life balance. How do you make it work?
My wife is big on me on that. So it's really about delegating. That's been the biggest thing, is that I don't have to do everything. And I have a great COO, I have a great team, and I let go and I just trust. And that goes back to failing. And if they made a mistake, we learn from it. But letting go and not having to be in every single step of a project, that's been great for the work-life balance.
What's your advice to budding entrepreneurs?
Slow and steady wins the race, and you can do it with the money that's in your pocket. No excuses. You can do it.
You can do it. That'll be the last word. Andre, thank you so much for being here. It was great having you.
Thank you so much as well.
I'm Pam Gigante. As always, thanks so much for watching.
Major funding for this episode was provided by
Comcast Business understands the needs of small businesses because we're one too. From a startup with 1,200 subscribers, we've grown to become a technology provider delivering business solutions to over 2 billion businesses like yours.